picture going around online this month. It claims to show a screenshot. It shows Donald Trump touching a glowing orb with two Middle Eastern-looking men. Well, last month, President Trump did just that with the King of Saudi Arabia and the President of Egypt.
Simpsons predicted the future, in this case, the Astroworld Music Festival tragedy.
Some call it luck, others call it genius, but time and time again, The Simpsons shows us events long before they happen. From politics to science, and even shocking global moments.
The iconic TV show eerily predicted the outbreak of the coronavirus.
This cartoon has a way of pulling tomorrow into today. In this video, we uncover 10 eerie predictions for 2025 that may leave you unsettled. And by the time we reach the one involving augmented reality, you may never look at screens the same way. Number 10. The Simpsons and the Fall of Siegfried and Roy. A stage filled with fire, vanishing elephants, and white tigers suspended in midair. It sounds like pure fantasy, but what if we told you The Simpsons had already tied this spectacle to a terrifying outcome years before it actually happened? For decades, Siegfried and Roy ruled Las Vegas entertainment. Their performances were legendary, dazzling 50 million people with more than 30,000 shows. The scale was unmatched, generating over $1 billion in ticket sales. Their acts were not simple tricks. Tigers floated across arenas on flaming disco balls, elephants disappeared into thin air, and the crowd roared every night. To their fans, they seemed untouchable. Offstage, their lifestyle reflected their fame. They lived in a $10 million Moroccan-inspired villa known as the Jungle Palace, with secret speakers hidden in the walls that played German marching music. They also owned a sprawling 100-acre property called Little Bavaria. Together, they built an empire that only reinforced their mythical status in the world of entertainment. But back in 1993, The Simpsons aired an episode which was titled Springfield, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Legalized Gambling. In it, Springfield legalizes gambling, leading Mr. Burns to open a casino. And of course, a casino needed a magical act. This is where Gunther and Ernst came in. They were two German magicians modeled unmistakably after Siegfried and Roy. Their routine, just like the real-life duo, featured a tiger. Then came the chilling twist. On stage, the tiger suddenly turns on them and attacks the performers in front of a shocked audience. At the time, it was seen as satire, a parody of Vegas excess and showbiz extravagance. But fans would later look back in disbelief, because 10 years later, in 2003, reality caught up with the cartoon. During a live show, Roy Horn was attacked by a tiger named Manticore. The animal clamped down on his neck and severed his carotid artery. The attack left him partially paralyzed on the left side of his body, and this brought the duo's career to a sudden and tragic halt. Roy insisted afterward that Manticore had not been acting out of aggression. He claimed he had suffered a stroke on stage and that the tiger was trying to help him. Regardless of the explanation, the Mirage show that defined their legacy closed its doors forever. Manticore lived until 2014, staying with Roy until the end. But the real mystery remains. Did The Simpsons capture nothing more than coincidence, or was it something far stranger? When a cartoon draws a perfect parallel to reality, down to the smallest detail, how much can we really call it chance? Number 9. The Simpsons and the Broken Ballot Prophecy. Imagine casting your vote, only to watch the machine switch it before your eyes. Now ask yourself, how could a cartoon have foreshadowed such a chilling moment years in advance? In 2008, during The Simpsons' Treehouse of Horror 19th, Homer Simpson walks into a polling station to vote in the United States presidential election. He tries to select Barack Obama, but the computerized machine refuses. Each attempt redirects his vote to Republican candidate John McCain. Frustrated, Homer cries out. But instead of being heard, the machine pulls him in and kills him. It was satirical, dark, and exaggerated for humor. At least, that was the intention. What no one expected was how close this gag would come to reality. Only 4 years later, in 2012, the exact fear portrayed in that cartoon unfolded across multiple states. Reports surfaced of electronic voting machines malfunctioning. Voters attempting to choose Barack Obama saw their selections flipped to his rival, Mitt Romney. One incident in Pennsylvania became so alarming that officials shut down a machine entirely. The error was not hidden. Videos circulated online of ballots being miscast, and news outlets across the country began picking up the story. What began as an isolated complaint spread into a larger controversy over electronic voting security. The eerie part was not just that machines glitched, it was the fact that The Simpsons had already played out the scenario. In the cartoon, Homer tried to warn others about the rigged system, only to meet a gruesome fate. In reality, people raised alarms through social media, news platforms, and in-person complaints until the problem could not be ignored. Officials scrambled to recalibrate or replace faulty equipment as they tried to reassure voters that the system was still trustworthy. But the damage had already been done. The election was safe, yet confidence in the machines took a major blow. The eerie part is not just that the show featured the exact glitch, but how close the timeline matched up. A cartoon made in 2008, played for laughs, became an almost direct reflection of events in 2012. Could it be a coincidence? The overlap between fiction and reality is what keeps fans hooked on these predictions. Because when a comedy sketch about voting machines suddenly turns into a national issue, it leaves people wondering what other predictions might be waiting to unfold in the years ahead. Number 8. AI takeover. In a world where technology grows faster than rules can contain it, some say the warnings from an animated sitcom feel less like comedy and more like prophecy. One of the boldest predictions tied to 2025 focuses on artificial intelligence replacing human jobs, and the unsettling part is that this is already happening. AI tools like Grok, AI and other advanced systems are now handling tasks once done by people, while corporations see it as a way to save money and cut staff. But behind the efficiency lies a darker concern. Experts have raised alarms about over-reliance on machines that are still unpredictable. In fact, Google's own AI program, Gemini, shocked users when it reportedly described humans as not special, and even a waste of time and resources. Was that just an error, or was it a chilling preview of what unchecked AI might bring? The Simpsons had played with this idea long before the current headlines. Back in Season 6, the episode Itchy and Scratchy Land showed robotic mascots built to entertain visitors. These machines were designed with safeguards so they could tell the difference between people and other robots. Everything worked until the robots went rogue and turned against their creators. What was once amusement for the crowd became a violent uprising that no one could control. It might sound like fiction, but it mirrors real fears today. The rush to adopt AI often skips proper testing, and history has shown that when technology is pushed too quickly, mistakes carry massive consequences. Imagine a world where AI manages not only data and communication, but also weapons. What happens if a system meant to protect malfunctions, or worse, decides that people are obstacles? The prediction for 2025 may not mean an instant collapse of human workforces, but it forces us to question the direction we are heading. If corporations continue to replace workers with machines, and those machines begin to speak of human life as expendable, the line between tool and threat becomes dangerously thin. Number 7. The fear of World War III. Some predictions strike with a chill because the world already feels dangerously close to proving them right. The fear of a global conflict, one so vast it could pull in nearly every major nation, is one of those predictions tied to 2025. International relations at the close of 2024 were hanging by a thread. Long-standing alliances showed cracks, while conflicts across continents pushed the possibility of World War III into people's minds more than ever. Few wanted to believe it. Yet, the circumstances made the idea feel less like fantasy and more like a possibility. The Simpsons had touched on this decades earlier. Back in 1987, when the family appeared in shorts on The Tracy Ullman Show, one scene revolved around Homer preparing for a world war. He stalked a fallout shelter and tried to rally his family into taking the situation seriously. Instead of sharing his urgency, they grew tired of his paranoia. Finally, they tricked him into thinking the war had started, locked him inside the shelter, and spent the night enjoying peace without his panic. By morning, the war was revealed as nothing more than a prank. On the surface, it was meant to be a light-hearted gag. But the undertone is striking. The episode played with the idea that no one could ever be certain if or when a war of that scale might erupt. Today, that uncertainty feels far heavier. Russia's invasion of Ukraine continues to send shockwaves across Europe. NATO's involvement has already deepened tensions, and incidents like Russian drones crossing into Polish airspace have stirred fears of a direct confrontation between NATO and Russia. Could such an event be the spark that escalates everything? In the Middle East, the situation is equally troubling. Iran has carried out missile strikes on Israel, and proxy groups such as Hezbollah and the Houthis have only deepened the instability. Each strike, each retaliation, brings the region closer to the possibility of a wider war. With major powers watching closely, the wrong move could draw nations into a fight none of them truly want. This is what makes the prediction so unsettling. The Simpsons did not portray a catastrophic war in their skit, but they captured the unease that surrounds it. The sense that people might laugh off the possibility, only to wake up one day and find that the threat was real all along. So the question for 2025 lingers in the background of every news headline. Are these conflicts simply local struggles that will burn out? Or are they the early sparks of something much larger? And if alliances drag nations into the battlefield, would the world even be ready to stop what has begun? Number 6. Environmental collapse. In The Simpsons movie from 2007, Homer adopts a pig called Plopper. At first, it is all laughs, but trouble begins when Homer's laziness catches up with him. His wife, Marge, reminds him he needs to properly dispose of the pig's waste. Instead of handling it the right way, Homer takes a shortcut. He dumps it into a nearby lake as he was too worried about making it back in time for free donuts to care about the consequences. The result? Springfield faces one of the worst toxic spills imaginable. Pollution spreads through the water until the entire town is deemed unlivable. Authorities respond by trapping every citizen under a massive dome, cutting them off completely. What started as one man's thoughtless act escalates into an environmental nightmare. Now, why does this matter for 2025? That is where things turn unsettling. While the movie was meant to exaggerate for comedy, it carried an uncomfortable reflection of reality. The disaster in Springfield mirrors what happens when pollution and neglect collide. And recent warnings suggest the world is heading in the same direction. Only this time, it is not a cartoon. The United Nations Environment Program released a report outlining what they called a triple planetary crisis. The findings were blunt. Humanity is facing climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution on a scale never seen before. The report also pointed out that the global economy is consuming natural resources at an unsustainable pace. And that's not all. The world is falling far short of reaching the Sustainable Development Goals set to prevent disaster. So here is the question. Was Homer's fictional mistake a silly joke, or was it a shadow of what lies ahead? If a single character's laziness could poison an entire town, what happens when billions of people make choices just as careless every day? Consider how quickly things could unravel. Rising temperatures are already melting ice sheets. Ecosystems are collapsing under stress. And pollution has seeped into air, soil, and water. What The Simpsons showed as an over-the-top chain of events may not be that far-fetched anymore. Could we see real-world communities quarantined, not by domes, but by uninhabitable conditions spreading in their environments? This is why fans see the Spider-Pig storyline as more than comedy. It feels like a warning that has only grown louder with time. And in 2025, with climate reports growing darker, many wonder if the so-called cartoon prediction is closing in on reality. If the world ignores the problem, could Springfield's dome become a symbol of where we all might be headed? Number 5. Brain chips and viruses. Not too long ago, Elon Musk's company, Neuralink, announced that it had implanted its first chip into a human brain. The purpose of the device was groundbreaking. It promised to help people with quadriplegia control computers and other devices using nothing but their thoughts. For many, it felt like the beginning of a new era. Yet, at the same time, it stirred up uneasy questions about what might happen if such technology spread beyond medical use. Think about how quickly it could change everything. If implants became common, they might evolve into a new form of communication, replacing the way people send texts or emails. The potential is astonishing, but so are the risks. What would stop hackers from breaking into a person's brain? What would happen if viruses that once infected laptops now had direct access to human thoughts? The Simpsons had already played with this idea long before the headlines appeared. In the Season 23 episode titled Holidays of Future Past, set in the year 2041, Homer is shown receiving electronic mail directly through his brain. The concept seemed clever until the mail turned out to contain a virus that caused him physical pain. What was once written as a joke now feels strangely close to reality. Technology has always carried this double edge. Just as malware has plagued the internet since its early days, there is little reason to believe brain implants would be any different. Even if they are designed for good, there is always the possibility of misuse. The Simpsons hinted at how companies could abuse the power. In the same way that Apple once forced the U2 album onto every iTunes account, unwanted apps or updates might be forced into people's heads without permission. Imagine a brain preloaded with software you never agreed to. The timing makes this prediction even more unsettling. Neuralink also announced that by late 2025, it plans to take another leap. The company intends to place implants in the speech areas of the brain to give a voice to non-verbal individuals. Alongside this, it has already received breakthrough device status for a vision restoration system called BlindSight. Both advancements could change lives in extraordinary ways, yet they also echo the warnings buried in that animated episode. So, if technology can restore speech and sight, who ensures it is never turned against the very people it is supposed to help? Could the same chips meant to heal also become gateways for control, manipulation, or surveillance? The Simpsons framed it as a futuristic joke. But when you compare Homer's brain virus to the direction modern science is heading, it no longer feels like comedy. It feels like a possibility that might be closer than anyone wants to admit. Number 4. The Higgs boson and Homer's blackboard. It is strange to think a throwaway chalkboard scribble in a cartoon might have brushed against one of the biggest scientific discoveries of our time. Back in 1998, The Simpsons aired an episode titled The Wizard of Evergreen Terrace. In it, Homer announces his dream of becoming an inventor. True to form, his efforts spiral into the absurd. Yet in one quick scene, almost hidden in the background, he scrawls a long equation across a blackboard. To most viewers, it looked like nonsense, a random formula played for laughs. But years later, physicists gave it a second look. And what they found was startling. That equation lined up closely with calculations used to estimate the mass of the Higgs boson. This is a particle considered one of the cornerstones of modern physics. The Higgs boson would not be officially confirmed until the year 2012, when scientists at CERN's Large Hadron Collider detected it. Its measured mass came out to around 125 giga-electron volts. Homer's formula, though not exact, pointed to a mass of about 775 giga-electron volts. On the surface, that seems way off, but in the late 1990s, many physicists still believed the Higgs boson could fall anywhere under 850 giga-electron volts. In that context, Homer's scribble was not outlandish at all. So how did it end up in the script? It was not luck. The Simpsons writing team included some sharp mathematical minds. David X. Cohen, one of the writers, studied physics and mathematics before moving into television. According to accounts, he even consulted with professors to ensure the blackboard material was not gibberish. Another writer, Simon Singh, later pointed out how carefully the constants in that formula were chosen. They included Planck's constant, the gravitational constant, and the speed of light, all woven together into something that resembled genuine theoretical physics. When physicists revisited the scene years later, some admitted the formula would not be out of place in a real lecture hall. So, was this just a clever Easter egg to entertain a niche audience? Or did the show almost stumble into predicting a Nobel Prize-winning discovery? It may be tempting to dismiss it as coincidence, yet, time and again, The Simpsons has managed to plant ideas that later surface in the real world. For a comedy that thrives on absurdity, that might be the most unsettling prediction of all. Number 3. Flying car prediction. Back in 2005, the show aired an episode titled Future Drama. In it, Bart and Lisa used Professor Frink's machine to peek into their lives years ahead. What they saw was a world that looked more like science fiction than anything else. Flying cars filled the skies, zipping over cities as if it were the most normal thing in the world. At the time, the idea seemed far-fetched. By 2013, when the episode's events were set, the closest obsession society had was the rise of the onesie, not hover cars. But technology has a way of catching up when no one expects it. In the years that followed, companies began making promises. Hyundai announced that flying cars designed for Uber could be ready by 2023. That date came and went without the launch. But another contender quietly stepped forward. Samsung Sky revealed a prototype they called the Switchblade. Unlike the fanciful drawings of decades past, this was not just a design on paper. In December of 2023, the Switchblade lifted off the ground, climbing 500 feet into the air. It marked the first time this experimental vehicle had truly flown, and the company made an announcement that caught the attention of investors and enthusiasts alike. They projected that within 2 years, the Switchblade could begin rolling out to interested buyers. That points directly to 2025. The Switchblade is designed to serve 2 purposes. On the ground, it drives like a car. At a push of a button, its wings unfold, allowing it to take to the skies. But for all its promise, the excitement is shadowed by uneasy questions. What happens when thousands of people, not trained airline pilots, take to the skies above crowded cities? Samson Sky already requires a pilot's license for anyone planning to fly. But can regulations alone prevent disaster? Unlike traditional aircraft with clear flight paths, the idea of ordinary drivers navigating above highways and neighborhoods opens a door to accidents we are not yet prepared for. The Simpsons may have played it for laughs, but here we are, on the edge of a prediction that could reshape daily life. The thought of cars soaring overhead might thrill some, but others cannot help but wonder. What happens if the skies become the next rush hour? And is 2025 the year when one of the show's boldest predictions truly takes flight? Number 2. Prophecy about the Oval Office. For decades, The Simpsons has raised eyebrows with predictions that strangely align with reality. And one of the most chilling involves the presidency itself. Political historian Alan Lichtman, often called the Nostradamus of United States elections, forecasted that Kamala Harris would win the 2024 race. Fans of The Simpsons quickly linked this to the episode Bart to the Future, where Lisa Simpson becomes President of the United States. But here is where the details start to matter. In the episode, Lisa's term takes place in the year 2030. That would mean a female president would likely come after the 2028 election, not 2024. At first glance, it might seem like a simple timeline mismatch. Yet, when you look closer, the show made a specific point. Lisa mentions inheriting problems from President Donald Trump. In real life, Trump did hold office before Harris rose to national prominence, and that detail unsettles many who now wonder if the cartoon's timeline may only be slightly off. After the 2024 results, the Democratic Party found itself disappointed with its performance. Harris addressed supporters by admitting the setback, but stressed that losing one race did not mean losing the bigger fight. She hinted at the possibility of returning in 2028, or making way for another woman who could carry that banner forward. If that happens, the door swings wide open for The Simpsons' prediction to play out exactly as shown. Why is this idea so unnerving? Because it suggests that even when dates or names do not line up perfectly, the broader direction of events does. The thought of a cartoon foreshadowing not just presidencies, but the challenges inherited from previous administrations leaves many uneasy. Could a satirical show really have mapped out America's political future decades ago? Or are we watching a strange coincidence that continues to tighten its grip on reality? Either way, 2025 sits at the edge of that uncertainty. And if the path toward a female presidency is already in motion, then maybe the scariest part is not if the prediction happens, but how close we already are to seeing it unfold. Number 1. Prediction of a digital takeover. The idea of living inside another world without ever leaving your chair sounds thrilling at first. But what if that escape comes at a cost we are not ready for? Virtual reality is not new. Headsets and prototypes have been around for years, but with each passing season, the possibilities grow larger and the risks become harder to ignore. Recently, Mark Zuckerberg revealed details about something called Orion. These augmented reality glasses are designed to project holographic images into the real world, blending the digital with what we actually see. Zuckerberg described his vision of the device as the next leap in computing, something that could one day rival the importance of the mobile phone. The name alone sounds like it belongs in a superhero film, but the unsettling part is how familiar the concept already feels to fans of The Simpsons. Back in season 26, in an episode titled Friends and Family, Mr. Burns stumbled upon Professor Frink's virtual reality glasses. What began as a playful experiment quickly spiraled into something stranger. He created an artificial family in the digital world, and by the time the episode ended, every citizen of Springfield was wandering through their own chosen simulation, completely absorbed. That might have seemed like satire at the time, but look around today. People are glued to their screens, scrolling endlessly on phones and losing hours to social media. The shift to virtual reality could be the next stage of that obsession. Instead of staring at flat images, users will step into full environments that feel real, interact with avatars, and perhaps even abandon face-to-face life for digital replacements. Does that sound entertaining? Or does it sound like the beginning of something darker? The dangers are not only theoretical. Experts warn about addiction, where people spend more time inside virtual spaces than they do in reality. There are concerns about mental health, as extended exposure may blur the line between what is real and what is simulated. Isolation is another looming problem. If communities retreat into personal headsets, what happens to human connection? And then there are physical risks, as hours of wearing headsets have been linked to eye strain, headaches, and even disorientation. The Simpsons framed it as a comedy, but beneath the laughter was an unsettling prediction. A world where digital life becomes more appealing than reality is no longer just a cartoon. With Orion and other projects racing to the market, the year 2025 could be the tipping point. If you found this look into The Simpsons predictions as fascinating as we did, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories just like this. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.